What's up,
What?
everybody? It's me, Reef, with my co-host Collin. I'm gonna talk like this for the rest of the. Is another extra episode of Iron and News. But I wanted to talk about this story because it's been ongoing, right? And
Mhm.
a lot of us had made this statement, I think, online. And but you've seen the French protests about pensions, yes,
Yes.
retirement
Yes.
age and stuff like that, among many other things that France has been protesting, including the
hmm
war in Ukraine, including. Um, but the question was brought up: why don't we protest like that? Right?
Right.
Aren't you a little curious why that doesn't happen here? Um,
Um, well, y- somewhat, but I mean, I know again, Sabby, who had Claire Daly. I wish we could get her. That would be a big get if we can get
mm-hmm,
Claire Daly on the show. But she mentioned in her being in Ireland. She said in a stream interview that she did with Savvy that the reason why this happens is because politicians in Europe are a little way more connected to their base
mm,
than our politicians here. So if they do shit, their constituents will fuck things up.
yeah,
Number one. But then number two, like there are those socialist programs as far as healthcare, education, like work labor laws in place
mm-hmm,
that are more favorable of an unlike here that you are able to protest and not have to worry about losing your health insurance or even really your job. So
so I found this video on the Reddits. I think it's from TikTok originally, but
mhm,
um this this young lady who is hopefully at Sky Noet on TikTok had something to say about it I found interesting and wanted to share with you people and see
okay.
what you people thought. Um let's play full screen.
I've been seeing a lot of people lately saying, like, why don't we protest like the French? And if you're wondering what I mean, this is what I mean. This is a video from a French protest showing them burning a cardboard cutout of their president. Aptly reminiscent of a funeral pyre because they are threatening the president for raising the age of retirement by 2 years. Now, what I think a lot of you are forgetting is that we did protest like this, and we still continue to do so. Like, do you guys not remember this absolutely badass moment when people burned down the police station in Minneapolis during the George Floyd protests? I was
Uh-huh.
there at Barclays Center getting pepper sprayed, watching police cars run into groups of people. We protest like that. And it's really insidious how hard capitalism has worked to keep us suppressed under the system. A lot of American news outlets worked really hard to villainize the protests that were happening,
NPR.
Yes.
unless they were
Yeah.
absolutely peaceful, maybe shutting down a street or a highway. Even then, they still had rubber bullets and mace and pepper spray and people dying at these protests. And still, American news sources are even painting the French
Reuters and
protest
AP.
as also being violent and bad, something that should be looked down upon. And now I'm seeing a lot of young people in America begging for a general strike, which is absolutely amazing and definitely the direction we need to be heading into. But a lot of you lack theory and actual historical context for how general strikes happen. Oh, but what does capitalism have to do with this? Union busting. I'll tell you right now, union busting. The French are able to throw the fuck down because they believe in their unions. Without unions, we'd have more than a 5-day work week, we'd have more than a 40-hour work week, and we'd still have children being our coworkers. And you also can't have a general strike without absolute work stoppages. Like this. This does not happen without a union.
Garbage piles up as French strikes nationwide over pension change. Now, this is where I defer from this video a little bit.
hmm
And she's close. I will grant her, right?
Right.
Very close, I might add. It's my issue of the reliance on the unions here.
Right.
Um, that's my
Right.
issue, which I think
Yeah.
like this isn't just the union doing this. The reason why the
Right.
garbage pile up is because everyone was like, it's a general strike. Everyone's doing it. Like, because it affects everyone.
Right.
So
again, it's more that socialistic
mhm.
mindset that I would argue most of the world has, even though there is that trickle of capitalism kind of based in there.
Yeah.
But I think at the core of it, within the communities that it involves directly, you could still see that aspect of socialism that people kind of buy into.
Yeah.
Here, it's just the idea of like individualism, rugged individualism mentality of like, you're on your own, do it by yourself. That's what is valued here. You can argue in the West generally, but Europe, there is still some semblance of socialism. So
Planning and providing for people. Like, do you know how fast things would change in America if, like, the trains just stopped? That's why it's illegal for train employees to strike.
Who stopped that? Who did that? And others.
Norfolk Southern. Or if mail carriers stop striking. And this is how modern day media and capitalism have teamed us to stop us from taking our fucking rights back. Have you ever seen a protest or work stoppage on a major news outlet being shown in a positive light? When teachers struck for better COVID conditions, they were slaughtered in the media. And they were just trying to literally save lives and get better pay for doing their hard work. The media has fostered such a culture of anti-union, anti-work stoppage that we can't get anything done. And as soon as there's even a mild convenience, like garbage pile up or something like that due to a general strike, the public immediately turns tide and starts attacking the striking workers. Even as in many cases, they are striking to protect the general public. And a lot of people talk very negatively about their union dues, but I don't think people understand that unions are big organizations and they need people that are specifically paid to run those unions. You have to pay people for accounting, you have to pay people for note-taking, you have to pay people for organizing a union. Part of your union dues should also go towards a strike fund. So when there is a labor condition violation and, say like train workers decide to strike, they have money saved up to pay people while they're striking so they aren't going hungry or like getting kicked out of their houses. Like I said previously, we didn't just like get given all of the rights we have today. People fought and organized tooth and nail for them. Some of the largest unions ever were founded by socialists and communists. The American Federation of Labor, or AFL, was funded in 1886 by Samuel Gompers. He was a known activist. And at its height, AFL had 1.4 million union members. Like when Roe versus Wade was overturned, imagine somebody being able to text 1.4 million people and having a large majority of these people show up into the streets and actually stop capitalist production systems, therefore losing people money. So the people in power actually care about what's happening instead of just like seeing it on TV and being like, I don't care, poor people, Now, eventually AFL merged with a few other organizations and they created the Congress of Industrial Organizations, or the CIO.
Which then made it the AFL-CIO, which we've talked about on the show previously.
And eventually the CIO purged all the communists and even had some arrested during the Cold War. And of course, after militant communists and socialists were purged from the organizations, the power of labor slowly began to decline thereafter. Communists and socialists are why we have the rights we have right now. And our ability to fight for better has been whittled down, both from the outside and the inside. And I think also in combination with like American exceptionalism, we are really resistant to like doing anything that is for the greater good or that emphasizes class struggle because people hate recognizing what privileges they do or don't have. So if you want a better life, if you want a general strike, if you don't want your rights to be taken away or people like me to be slaughtered in the streets, it's time to start organizing your workplaces or reading up about theory of like rank and file and everything like that. If you're already in a workplace or trade that has a strong union base, now would be a good time to start getting involved with that, both in the organizing and like encouraging your coworkers to actually join and pay dues to this. We as people have all the power. The knowledge that we do has just been beaten out of us systemically for hundreds of years. So that rich people can keep getting richer and we keep getting poorer. And I think now is especially an important time to start learning about the history of organizing and what has won us rights and what hasn't. Good luck out there, y'all.
Facts, except, and I am pro-union to a point. I've made this clear on the show before. Unions can only do so much. Because at the end of the day, unions have to go through the same corporations in order to get the bare minimum of power that workers should be getting anyway. So, that's why we push for the idea of worker co-ops, or just basically the idea of, seizing the means of production, whatever that means. So,
which we talk about listening to, organizers and so on. We talk about Kwame Ture, right?
Right. And it's so frustrating because there should be. She's right in terms of, and I'm a little pissed because this is something that happened today, on Twitter. I reported on LA teachers striking in solidarity of support workers within the district. And I actually was tagged in this, which I didn't include in that segment. But I was tagged in that thread where someone, it might have been a bot or whatever, but who were they blaming for what's happening? The unions.
Yeah.
And that's typically what I see. It's like whenever people are striking, especially for teachers, it's like, oh, it's the unions. It's their fault. Like they're asking for too much money. Like teachers are lazy and da 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 da. And it's like, no, it's the idea of now there are issues with unions. I will say that, but they are really the only means right now where, to be very fair, for many of them, they're the only means of us right now, given our climate, in this capitalistic climate, that we're able to get some sort of concessions, for labor in particular. So do I wish they can be doing more? Absolutely. And that's kind of part of my frustration too.
My thing is, it's the organizations themselves now that have become stooges to corporate, right? This is she laid it out. It's like the minute they started pushing out, dissenting voices, it was over too. So, same, still the same. But yeah, appreciate the insight though. I think that was interesting.
Right. So I think it's just a matter of, and she's right, and we're not gonna learn this in school.
B+, I would imagine from this, even more. I'd give that a A. You get an A.
Right. Which is why this kind of, and I hate going back to Marianne, but this is why I'm very livid right now of the idea of, especially on the left, the focus, especially with the larger channels and some that want to be in that stratosphere, wanting to push this woman who is essentially doing this for her own celebrity and her own success over the needs of people, where right now we need to focus on activating labor in terms of having solidarity among each other. And working in means where we can organize effectively, where we're able to, again, learn from our leaders. We did a segment like this on this during Black
Unity doesn't represent what you're against. It represents what you are for.
Thank you, Kwame. The idea of us learning what it means to organize, the idea of what it means to have a general strike in terms of saving money or putting it in a pool of money aside. So in the event when you do have to strike, you can, because people won't have to worry about losing their jobs or their livelihood because they're too scared to, because they wouldn't be able to function otherwise. And again, that's the difference between here and France. French don't have to worry about that shit generally. Here we do. And that's the chain that is around our necks in order for us to kind of suck it up and do our jobs, even though we may not necessarily want to. But yeah, but we have to learn what that means and what it like what organizing means and what it doesn't mean, that we're able to fight more effectively. Which is why someone like Kashama Sawant, what she's doing is very significant, which has really not gotten much press. Well, mainstream media is not going to report on it at all, but like even in independent media hasn't really reported on what she's doing as far as workers strike back.
What the
like
actual fuck?
that effectively or at all, which I feel right now is, especially on the left, is needed. Like, we need power, and we need to learn how to gain that power, not give it away to some rich white woman who's only in it for her own selfish means. As I said, she's basically Trump on the left.
Grow up and get serious.
Gotta grow up, Colin.
Well,
Let's grow
I'd rather
up.
I'd rather have people grow up and get serious over things which long term would be more beneficial to us
Sure.
than like in the short term having someone just talk about the issues, which means nothing to me, because
Yep.
we don't need to talk about the need for like universal health care. We don't need to talk about the need of having people have a minimum wage. We don't need to talk more about the idea of,
You need to talk about how you're going to get that, the actions you're going to do. Yeah.
Right. That's what we need to talk about.
Awareness isn't the issue anymore. But yeah, I mean, agreed. I think the people know we're preaching to the choir. We got next week Robert Durden coming on for our 1 year anniversary. I dragged this guy kicking and screaming into things. So, you know, he's gonna have to pay me back at some point.
No, I'm good.
You're like, I'm good. I don't need to bring you into stuff. But anyway, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Subscribe to all the things.
Tuned.
Find all the stuff. IndieNews.network.
Stay tuned for more clips later. At some point, we'll let you know.
Yep.
On the Twitters things.
Yep. At Get Indie News on Twitter. Find that. Yeah. So good stuff all around. But as always, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.